Say to somebody if they told you that it would be a good idea to turn your television when you had it off, to unplug it because of the kinds of radiation that came through or the kinds of broadcasts that were still coming through even though it was off, that might be harmful. So a solution would be to unplug it.
Okay. That I'm hearing. One is the electrical radiation.
And the other is the broadcast.
The broadcast is not coming through. Okay, let's have a little thing. I can understand you mean like broadcasts about negative news or fearful things or violent programs or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Frequency.
Oh, we're talking just the frequencies. Okay. First of all, when a television set is turned off, okay, then it is still connected and there is still some electromagnetism. Not very much, because you can try to measure it and it's not very much, but it's there. Okay, and there's biggest potential is for an electrical surge to have a problem, like if there's lightning strike or a problem with the power lines. Okay, and you can apply this personally too if you want. As far as any influence from the types of programs that are being broadcast, there's no connection. That is not turned on, that is not tuned into until the set is turned on. And then when it's turned on, it's only turned on to the frequency of the particular channel. So if you're listening to Barney or Sesame Street, you're not getting any influence whatsoever from some program of violence. Okay? You're tuned out. It's just as if walking around in life, all these things are happening in the world. Okay? And let's apply this a little bit more. Everything is energy. This comes from ancient esoteric tradition as well as from modern physics. Okay? So everything is energy. And there's no place where that energy does not go. So some places it's stronger than others, but if there's violence in the world, that frequency is part of your environment. Doesn't matter where it is. Whether a television set's turned on or not, somebody else is next door, or the actual event, wherever it happens to be taking place, is all permeating our whole universe. But so is all the great and good stuff that's happening. All the laughter and the help and the healing and the joy and the beauty and all of that is also permeating your environment. What matters then is not whether this stuff is occurring, because it's occurring all the time, all kinds of different things. What matters is what are you tuned into? Okay? One way of tuning in and focusing your attention is turning the radio or television to a particular channel. And then what matters is not so much what you're watching as to how you respond to it, but nevertheless you're tuned into that. And another way of tuning in to all of this energy in the universe and all the different kinds is by your thinking, your feelings, your attitude, your behavior, your beliefs. That is also a way of tuning into that. So in general, let's say, if you are a very happy person, for the most part, then for the most part, you would be tuned into very happy events, and they will subconsciously reach you and support you and sustain you and assist you and give you more strength for dealing with events that might not be so pleasant. Okay? But if you are typically or habitually a very fearful, critical, negative person, then those are the kinds of events that you will tend to be attracted to, or they will tend to be attracted to you. In one way of putting it, you'll be more aware of them and therefore more influenced by them. But again, what happens is, how do you respond? Because you can have, let's call it a negative event, an unpleasant, dangerous event. And some people will react by running away. And some people will react by trying to fight it or destroy it and get rid of it. And some people will react to the same event by immediately seeking to heal it. Right? These are completely different reactions to the same event. And that's going to determine a lot of what happens to you. So it's not only the event that's happening that you're tuned into by your thoughts and your feelings and beliefs, but it's also how you react to that event, what you do when it occurs. That is far, far more important than whether you leave the television on or off, or whether you unplug it or not. Because although that's a more intense focus where you are located, like I said, there are radios and televisions and actions going on all over the world all the time. Okay. Yeah.
This question, I think, may also be involved in the idea of that there are radiations that are coming out of things that can hurt you. Standing in front of microwave ovens, even if they're turned off. Being close to electric poles, having your house built next to electric lines. This has kind of gotten some popular publicity lately, and so that may be also part of what you're talking about, that there's a radiation.
Well, let's talk about this. This is a universe. This is a universe of radiation. There's all kinds of radiations. There's cosmic rays, there's ultraviolet, there's gamma rays, there's stuff all over the whole universe is radiation, okay? Waves of energy. Now, let's take these power lines, for instance. I know there's been concern in some neighborhoods of people who are living near or under the power lines. And according to the data that's been published, roughly around, that I've read anyway, roughly around 20% of the people who live in such a place are very strongly and adversely affected. That means 80% don't seem to be bothered. Okay? Now, those 20% are having a serious reaction, and that has to be taken into account and something has to be done. But 80% are not being bothered, apparently. And someone who says, well, maybe they're being bothered and don't know. Well, we don't know that, so we can't really talk about that. We only talk about the ones we know. Right? And so most of the people don't seem to be bothered. I've used microwaves for years, and they haven't bothered me. And yet other people can't get near them. And I've worked and helped with people who cannot stand not only microwave transmissions for communications, but the electromagnetic radiation that's coming out of the walls of a room or a house. That's constant as long as there's connection to electrical grid. And so you're constantly bathed in this electromagnetic field. Some people, it drives them crazy. They have to get away and they have to get rid of that. And other people don't seem to be bothered by it, particularly those who thrive on living in places like Manhattan or Los Angeles or something like that. Now, what's going on? It is related to what I said before, because it matters a lot what it is you're tuned into. What, not only your state of mind, but your state of body. Now, the more stress your body is under, and that's not always visible, but you can tell by how it behaves. Okay? The more stress your body is under, from mental, emotional, or physical means, the more likely you are to have an adverse reaction to radiation of various degrees. Okay? The higher the stress, the less radiation it takes for you to be bothered. There's a certain group of people who are under such high, constant physical stress from a lot of sources that they cannot even stand what we might even call the radiation of kerosene or fresh paint or new carpet chemicals that other people aren't bothered by. But these people are in a state of extreme sensitivity. And so it can be deadly to them. So it's important that we realize just because we're not bothered by something doesn't mean that someone else is faking it or imagining things. Different people in different states of mind and body have different reactions to the environment. Okay? But it does mean that their state is what is the most important factor. So your choice is change your state or change your location. Now, in one way, it's an awful lot easier to change your location. But then if you don't do anything about your state, every location you gradually move to, there's going to be something toxic about it for you. Because your stress will keep accumulating. And you'll be in the most beautiful place in the world with flowing water and rocks and flowers and a whiff of pollen or the constant beating of the water on the rocks. Something's going to get to you, okay? If you don't change your state, okay? So doing both sometimes is more rapidly healing. And so you always have to do, in this philosophy, do what's practical. First thing, if you're in danger of dying or severe illness, get out of there. And then start working on changing your state. It's much easier to do, okay? If for whatever reason, family or economic, and these are all your own ideas, but whatever reason you believe you have to stay there, then you better start changing your state real fast. And first, the easiest way to do that is start with physical means. Relaxation, massage, anything that it takes to help you relax your muscles. And then if you can get into some kind of, in something enjoyable or meditation or whatever it takes to get yourself calmed down and relaxed, if you believe that you can't move right away. Okay? But approaching it from both sides gives the fastest relief. Yeah.
Well, I guess the thought that I've had is that, I mean, I always thought, well, it's good to really purify your diet and to, cleanse as much as possible. But then, in a sense, you're sensitizing yourself. Or how would you respond? Do you see what I'm saying? How would you respond to that?
From the point of view of this philosophy, whenever you start making any kind of change, good or bad, any kind of change puts stress on the body. There have been lots of studies that show this, okay? But this is something you can also experience. Any kind of change is going to produce stress. When you're under stress, you're more sensitive. When you begin changing your diet from one pattern to another, you see, everything is connected. Well, we have this idea that there are no limits. Everything we do in life is connected. The way we think is connected to the way we eat. You can't separate them out. When you change the way you think, you'll find your diet changing. When you start changing your diet, you're going to find your thinking changing. Everything is relating to everything else. So if you decide for your own benefit that it's a good idea to change your diet, okay? If you feel this is purifying and that's beneficial to you and this is what you want, that's fine. But in the process, there are going to be changes in the body. Sometimes the kind of diet you start to do is going to cause the body to start relaxing its tension and release built-up toxins that have been held in for a long time. Okay? That's physiological fact. Okay? And those toxins are then going to be running through the bloodstream and affecting your cells, brain and organs and stuff like that, and you're going to have reactions. They'll be temporary as long as you keep on with the process of letting them flow and keep on with the process of keeping your body relaxed as much as you can. And so they'll be fairly short term if you can do that. But it's a process that happens. Some people immediately get dizzy when they start doing deep breathing because they haven't done a lot of deep breathing. And one thing deep breathing does is relax stress. And then if you feel any dizziness, that's toxins rushing through the bloodstream from that relaxation. See? So it can happen in a lot of different simple ways as well as profoundly. Now if you begin fasting, brought fasting up before, what happens then? Well, fasting begins to, first of all, you know that you immediately begin fasting, you don't immediately begin losing weight. Because the fat that's being stored is really therefore reserved to protect you in some way, emotionally or physically. So the first thing that the body starts working on is the stored up energy in tension. See? And so as you fast, the tension begins to release. Yeah. And this energy just flow. You never knew you had so much. But also sometimes what flows with it are the toxins that are also being released through that. Okay? And so it can be a very interesting time. Okay? But these changes are going back and forth. So what we're looking at when we say, if you change one thing, anything, everything related to it will also change. What happens in some people's lives is they begin changing one thing, a pattern of behavior or a pattern of eating or a pattern of thinking, and then they start getting these reactions from another part of life, decide they don't like those enough that they stop the change and clamp down again. That happens. However, life is change, because life without change is called dead. Okay? Life is change. You can suppress your awareness of it, and you can try to hold it back. Things are changing anyway. And you can really hold that and fool yourself for a long time that you've got everything under control. And then finally, when you've reached the limit of what you can possibly suppress, bam, something happens in your life, in your body, in your mind, in your environment, in your relationships, but something will snap, which could have been a much more enjoyable growth if you hadn't fought it, if you hadn't been afraid of it. But the change will happen. And the more you suppress, then the stronger that change will be and the more unpleasant it will seem, usually. On the other hand, it can also happen because of the environment and the people that you're with and the support that you get that you've suppressed for all of your life, and your change is such that it's a change without any resistance, and it goes into bliss, spontaneous remission of cancer, fantastic new insights, cosmic consciousness, all kinds of things can happen. And it all depends on your state and your response to change. Okay. Well, kind of a long answer to that, but I wanted to cover several things in there. Okay.